This is Scale Her Up, the podcast for female-led businesses ready to grow to seven figures and beyond. I'm Dr. Brenda Hector, business coach and champion for women in business, on a mission to change the stats and help more women scale successfully. Each week, we share real stories, tools, and tactics to help you build a business that supports the life you want. Follow the show and come join the Scale Her Up Facebook community. You don't have to do this on your own. Now, today I'm joined by Rosie Berridge of Accountability Edinburgh. Rosie, thank you very much for joining me on Scale Her Up.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
So the first question I ask everybody is,
Okay.
what's Accountability Edinburgh and what do you do?
That's a good question. So we are an accounting practice, but with a difference because we don't do, I suppose we're defined by what we don't do. We don't do personal tax returns. We don't do year-end accounts. We do the bit that actually everyone really needs, but doesn't always talk about, and that's the in-year support. And so we do all the bookkeeping, VAT, payroll, management accounts, working with our clients to make sure that they really have a handle on their numbers. And so that's much more like a virtual finance team for businesses who are probably a bit too small to employ their own team. We can provide that. So yeah, that's what we do.
Oh, I'm excited already because as a business coach, I keep meeting businesses who think that what they're paying their accountant for is what you offer, but actually what the accountant thinks they're being paid for is just to do their end of year stuff and keep them compliant.
It's really true. There's a huge mismatch, and we see that a lot. I mean, and it creates this it creates this real disappointment from business owners who feel that they've engaged somebody who's going to be, able to answer a quick query because they've got their hands on the numbers, kind of, they've got them available. But just because your accountant has access to your Xero subscription or your QuickBooks subscription doesn't mean to say they're actually looking at your numbers. And often that's a difference in expectation, right? So at the outset of that conversation, has there been a point where either party has said, this is what we're going to do? And more importantly, actually, this is why I start with what we don't do. This is what we don't do. And so I think for me, it's always been really clear, it's been really important to be clear about what it is that we're doing. And I think for me, that came from the fact that I retrained to be an accountant. And when I was retraining to be an accountant, I'd gone through the process of working with my husband and his business and seeing that there was a mismatch between what he wanted from his accountant and what he actually got, which is why I structured the business this way.
Do you know, I also see it's really hard for anybody to find, like, I need an accountant, who would you recommend? And there's more often it's, oh, don't go there because, and I think the problem that some people think they've had a bad experience with their accountant is because the communication's not been where it needs.
I mean, if you put it in the context of a different profession, I mean, if you think about it as a medical profession, if you said, Rosie, I really need a doctor, I mean, naturally you would say, well, what kind? And so, I mean, if you need an orthopedic consultant, you're not going to go to a dermatologist, right? And it's very similar in accountancy. I mean, I really love burrowing into really messy accounts, but ask me to do a tax return. In theory, I trained to do it. I do my own, but it's that I'm not brilliant at it. And it's the same thing as it is in medicine. You need somebody who can signpost you. Now, most accounting practices are set up to do that year-end work. And I suppose you could see them like GPs. And it might be, that they can signpost you to somebody if you need a real hand on an ongoing basis. Then they might signpost you to a different firm or a VAT specialist or somebody like that. But it's often this idea that an accountant can do everything. I mean, in the same way that the medical profession, in theory, they probably did all that basic training. But yeah, and so we don't. It's not common to think of it in that way. But I feel like when I explain it to people like that, I'm like, okay, I get it, because there's so many things to think about.
Is it actually like that, or is that what you want it to be like?
That's a good question. I do think it's actually like that.
Okay.
I mean, I think I do think it's actually like that, but there are very many accounting practices who say they can do it all, who are saying they're a full service. But actually, it's really interesting if you burrow down into that, how many accounting firms are doing your payroll, but don't actually have an employee who's doing that payroll. They're outsourcing it. Or they say that they're doing your bookkeeping, but they're not actually doing it because it's been outsourced to someone in India. I mean, that's a real thing, that's happening a lot in the accounting sector at the moment, this concept of outsourcing. So it's, and it is, I think, I know that there are insolvency practitioners, people who are great at charity accounts, people who are great at VAT, people who are great at, kind of financing arrangements, all of that. I know specialists in all of those things. And I would generally signpost if it's going over and above my pay grade or my area of expertise in the same way that doctors would. But I think, you know, that's not generally understood. And it's also muddied by the fact that there are a lot of accounting practices who are trying to compete in all areas of work.
I love that you're very clear on your niche then, on
Yeah,
your
I mean, it's
service.
funny because I don't really feel like I do have a niche and that there's no particular business sector I'm looking for. It's not like I'm particularly looking for design companies or whatever. But I suppose I want those people who are too small to have their own finance team. I want that in-year, work. And I'm clear that we're really good at bookkeeping, VAT, day-to-day VAT, because if it goes above our pay grade, we'll refer, payroll, management, accounting. And again, in all of those things, there could potentially be a reason that it would go over our area of expertise, but we're a great place to start. And we would refer where we can't go further, because all of those things, well, not bookkeeping, but the other things are all areas of specialism. But yeah,
Well, I think in the first 5 minutes of this interview, we've just blown lots of misconceptions about what to expect when you talk to an accountant.
great.
So I think that's fabulous.
Yeah. And I think it's important when business owners are talking to accountants, like trying to meet an accountant. I always recommend if people ring me up and say, I want someone to do my accounts. And I say, well, what is it you want? And they tell me, oh, it's such and such. And I think, oh, that's not for me. And I always recommend that they go and talk to two or three, because A, to make sure that those people actually do deliver those services. B, because this isn't really, we're as accountants privy, I'm sure that business coaches are the same, privy to a lot of personal information about those business owners, what they're looking for, what they want from their lives, that they want to spend more time with their children, that in 10 years' time, they want to buy a yacht and sail around the world. They open up a lot. And to help you get there, is you need someone who's going to hold you accountable. You need someone who's going to act in your best interest. And it's really difficult to do that if you don't have a synergy, if there's not a great, strong relationship between those people. So I always recommend that people go and talk to two or three people, because they need someone that they trust, that they know, that they like, that they think that they're going to get that accountability, that they're going to get what it is actually that they're looking for, rather than just, and for some people it's just attached and they don't want to pay a huge amount, and that's fine. If you actually want to partner with an accountant to help you meet your goals, it's got to be someone that you're happy to take advice from, you're happy to take accountability from, and that you just get on with, who's going to value the fact that you've shared that information with them.
No, I think that's brilliant. So the next part then
Yeah.
that makes sense to talk about is the business owners come to you or because they need you to, well, you said you'll nothing better than getting stuck into a set of messy accounts. Tell me about the messy accounts and what anybody that's listening, if you've got any advice around.
Yeah, well, it's difficult because people don't always know. So let me try and think of a few examples. So some people do know, and there's something that they're having a niggle about, or they're having sleepless nights about. And so one good example of that I often quote is that we were approached. We were referred to a business by their accountant. And the accountant said, oh my goodness, there's something gone wrong with Xero. We don't know what it is. We've got a pretty good idea of what their accounts look like, but there's about 6 years worth of unreconciled transactions at the bank and we can't make it match. And the business owner is having a nightmare with it and we don't know how to fix it. Now, this was an e-commerce business. They had, well, in fact, it was an e-commerce business and also they had physical shops with tills. And effectively what was happening was there was an integration between their tills and with Xero, but the numbers never matched. So when they got money in from their tills paid out to them, it didn't match what the tills were sending into Xero. And so for 6 years, they'd ended up with thousands and thousands of transactions. And so this business owner comes, they're really frantic. They're thinking, I just want it all to be clean. I've got no idea how to fix it. And actually, it was quite straightforward. It was just to burrow into the numbers, to work out that the integration was wrong. And this was the reason why. And so, and actually it came down. It was very straightforward for us to fix, but it just took somebody understanding how these integrations work to look at it, to go and fix 6 years worth of data, resend it, and then we wrote an instruction to show the business owner, this is how you're going to check it on a monthly basis. It should work from now on, but if anything goes wrong, here's what to do to fix it. And in fact, we did that in COVID, and they, 6 years on, they've not been back. So that's all good. So that's one example of kind of messy accounts when somebody knows there's a mess. The other kind of thing that can be messy is that somebody doesn't know there's a mess. So, for example, we took on a company last year. They'd had a bookkeeper in doing work for them who had been effectively double posting stuff at the bank. So when they had sales invoices and purchase invoices posted to Xero, then they'd written that they'd marked them as paid. But then when they marked them whatever it was, they'd managed to duplicate a whole load of stuff and actually create lines up their statement, and they didn't know what they were doing. And the effect was that for about 12 months of data, the client's accounts was probably out each month by about 20 to 30,000 pounds. They'd overstated income, they'd overstated expenditure. And so, just simply because the bookkeeper hadn't really understood how to manage a bank reconciliation. And it's not really their fault. If a bookkeeper ought to know how to do that, but they hadn't understood what the fix was, or, how to control it or how to check it. And so that was an example of someone coming to us and saying, oh yeah, no, our accounts are in good order. We've got a bookkeeper who's been doing blah, blah, blah. And actually when we unpicked it, it was a pig's ear, but it's quite easily fixed once you understand it. And then the other kind of thing that can happen is that someone's very paper-based. Okay. So we've got really manual processes. You've got people, like piles of paper. You've maybe still got a stamp that you're stamping a paper invoice with and approving it and blah, blah, blah. And then you're not making the most of automations that exist that really save time and just get rid of all that paper, and speed things up and everything flows more quickly. So, there's lots of ways that, for us, we like to see, we invest quite heavily in the team going away to, kind of big accounting exhibitions, and we keep up with lots of softwares. And so then when our clients come to us, we're able to advise them about the best way to automate everything to make, but mostly really so that then they get the numbers that they need.
Mm-hmm.
That they're getting the analysis on their profit and loss that they need to know. So when they're talking to you, for example, they know this income stream made this amount of profit as opposed to that income stream making this amount of profit. And what do we actually need to do? And so few people have had that conversation about, well, how do I actually figure out how I make a profit on that as opposed to that? And how can I report on it? Because I absolutely guarantee, having been through coaching myself, that you're asking questions and people are going, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how to get at it, which must be very frustrating for you, but also for business owners.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
how do I get there? This is not their area of expertise. So, I mean, so really that's what we're existing to do, is just to make everything work, kind of what's your analysis of what you need to know, and how can we get that information out for you in the most, kind of prompt, reliable way.
So they can make decisions. So they can make
Exactly.
decisions. They can know whether they should buy in more of that product
Exactly that.
range, or whether they should, whether
And
they,
there could be so
or
many things that they want to track. I mean, it could be whether a particular marketing activity has, what impact that's had, or whether this store or this team or this department are most profitable, or, kind of, or what the seasonality is actually, or, whether they're actually recovering the cost of labor, what are the ancillary costs, on a job that I'm missing. I mean, there's so many things that we end up talking to business owners about. This is what I need to know, and it's never the same. It's always different for each business.
I know that for lots of businesses, the benefit of having someone when they go, I need to know this, having someone like you who can then
Yeah,
answer the question or tell them how to find that out is,
yeah,
yeah.
and it's not always quick, because sometimes it's the case that we have to restructure things.
Hmm.
So it might be, okay, well, the data, the way it's being put in at the moment, it doesn't give us the opportunity to find that out, and it's not as complicated as you might worry. So, so there's, yeah, I mean, but that's really what we exist to do, is to make sure that we're not just churning out numbers for the sake of a tax return or for the sake of a set of financial statements that companies ours. I've got a strong belief that those numbers should be helping business owners actually run their businesses in the interim. The last thing you want is to wait for that conversation with an accountant when your year end's closed, and perhaps 7 or 8 or even 9 months later, they're saying, here's your tax return, you've made a profit and you owe, X amount of
How many
corporation tax. That's
thousands
the
of bucks?
last
Yeah,
thing you want. You want to know that as you go, right? And you want to know this shouldn't ever come as a surprise.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, well, we're definitely on the same page, you and I.
I think so.
So tell me about Rosie then.
Yeah.
Are you the founder of
Yeah.
Accountability Edinburgh? Yeah. So tell me
Yeah.
tell me about that decision, that process. Well, how did you start? Why did you start?
So I had a whole other career before I started as in this industry. So I used to have a marketing background, and I gave that up and went to work with my husband, and no one was looking after the money. So I started doing credit control, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And eventually I decided to go and get a job, and I went and did my training. I went and studied with the AAT. I finished that. And as I was going, I'd picked up a couple of, kind of bookkeeping jobs as well. And so I suppose, sorry, Siri's talking to me. And I suppose there was a point where I'd got 3 small children. I had 3 children, 3 years and under. I was paying more in childcare than I was earning in my job. I had got to know a couple of other bookkeepers who'd said, this works. This is really flexible. If you've got an appointment, or you want to go and see a school nativity play, you can just say, I've got another meeting. And it really just started like that, as a kind of like, this was going to be a kind of small part-time job for me, just so that it could support me and add a bit, of cash to the household when I have small children. But it kind of grew arms and legs, in that my clients referred me to other clients. I picked up new business. And so I left I decided to take the plunge, become self-employed, and set up accountability. And within about a year, I'd recruited somebody. And it kind of, that was in about 2011, 2012. And it didn't really do much more than that until COVID. And in COVID, I'd had 5 members of staff, and thought, what am I doing here? Because I've been pottering along with this business, but what am I actually trying to do with it? And then I wrote myself a plan. So I'd started working with a business coach myself,
Mhm.
and I wrote a plan, and I was encouraged to be ambitious. And I wrote a 5-year plan, and now I'm at the end of it. I'm li- and and I projected, it was quite ambitious. I mean, it was more ambitious than I've actually got to, but I haven't got far off. So I thought, I think there's a huge demand for what I do. I know that this project works that we do in terms of fixing things, no one else is really doing that or going out looking for messy accounts. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to do that. And so I laid out a plan where we were going to look for that kind of work. Very often, then what would happen is that those clients, some of them would leave, but a lot of them would stay with us because they'd come to know how we worked. They liked how we worked. They didn't want to look after their stuff. They didn't want to make it a mess. They wanted to make sure that we were looking after them. And so
Well,
yeah,
if I understand this, you're taking on a project, tidy up their accounts,
mhm,
and then they stay with you afterwards. They don't have to,
yeah,
but yeah.
they don't have to. I mean, we just do the project and they don't have to have a project. They can just come and start to work with us. But often when we do a project, about 70% of those clients, they stay with us for ongoing recurring work of some form. Either that we've trained them to do some stuff, but we check, or we do management accounts, but they do bookkeeping. It might be something like that.
Mhm.
And so, so then alongside that with this business plan, I'd laid out a kind of growth program, which would take us from 5 members of the team. I'd said 22. We've actually now got 17 of us. But I mean, but we've done it. I mean, we've really, in all other effects, we're very close to where I forecast our income would be. We're very close to where I forecast our profits would be. We've just done it with slightly fewer people. So yeah, that feels good, right? I mean, then I think, we are actually, because it's a very satisfying area of accountancy to be in, because when we fix things or when we make things faster, we get people going, "Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's so exciting. You've really saved us time." Or you've actually, I got someone ages ago said that I was referred me on to a friend of theirs and said, "Rosie's better than a sleeping pill," which, which I was offended by at the time. But actually, I think there's
Oh
value in that.
no,
To be able to sleep easy, there's a huge value in that,
if
right? And so
you and
you're
I
just
can help business owners
exactly.
sleep better at night, then there's no better
There's huge
job
value in that.
satisfaction. Yeah.
And also, I think we're small enough that all of our clients know, most of our clients know me. There's a couple actually in recent months that have come that I don't know brilliantly well. But I mean, I I have been in their position because I've grown that business and I understand how you want to look after your staff and, how you've personally invested in this business and how you work late hours and, and how sometimes you can't stop thinking about it and where are you going and you need to write it all down. And, you've got 20 million ideas going through your head about things that you could do. I get that, and actually a lot of our team have also themselves previously run their own businesses. So quite a few of the team get that. And I think, when you're partnering with somebody in that way, you've really got to understand how life is for business owners. So yeah, so that's me. I mean, I set up properly in about 2012, but didn't get going until about 2020. And
Uh-huh.
yeah. And so last year, in the final year of our business plan, we were voted bookkeeping practice of the year in the Accounting Excellence Awards, which is like the industry awards. And we also got the bookkeeping team of the year in the Zero Awards, which we'd also had in 2024. And also actually probably one closer to my heart, we also in the Zero Awards got Client Champion Award. So, which I think, I feel I'm proud of them all, but I'm proud of that one because that's what we're here to serve.
You used a word that stuck with me there. You said when we're partnering with people like that,
Yeah.
how many business owners actually feel they've got a partnership with their accountant or with their bookkeeper? I think that's a brilliant, it's just a
Yeah, very few.
way of saying it. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, very few. And actually, I think the traditional model is you see your accountant at a year end, possibly once or twice during the year because you're tax planning or you're doing something like that. You've potentially got somebody bookkeeping for you, but very often those people don't really know the accounts. Whereas at Accountability, we've got accountants or people who are training to be accountants delivering all this work. And therefore, they're coming at it from an accounting mindset. So, you want to watch your directed zone account doesn't get overdrawn. You want to make sure that, you're not paying out dividends when when you're technically insolvent. We're keeping an eye on all of that, which is not necessarily, I mean, there are bookkeepers who will do that. There's quite a lot of overlap between accounting and bookkeepers. You know, we have a process where it includes the words, what would you do if this was your business? Like when you're reviewing these accounts, what would you do if this was your business? What are the things you would want to know? So yeah, so I do see it as a partnership.
Yeah.
We want contact with our clients. We have regular contact with our clients. We've got to think about it in terms of, if this was me, what would I want to know?
I wanted to ask you then about the awards. How
Yes.
valuable are awards to you, or how important is that to you?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of mulling over, do I go for them again this year? But I think it's 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 been important from a view of validation. It's been great for the team, I think, to be able to. I mean, it's pride. There's a personal pride in having recognition of the work that we've delivered, and that someone else who you respect, whether that's Zero or the wider accounting sector, whether someone else thinks that's valuable and what you've been doing has been impressive. I think it's that really. I think it's that recognition. I mean, for me, it's quite a lot of work to put in an entry
Yeah.
for an award. And so, it does need to pay off. I think really it's in that pride for employees, for the team here. I am personally incredibly proud of the efforts that this team go to look after their clients. And so for me, I would spend the time putting in those award entries because I think that they need they deserve that recognition.
Mission. Yeah.
So I think that's what it is for me. But, having got there now, there's this worry about, well, what do I do? What do we do next with that? Do we keep going for it relentlessly? And I think I'm not entirely sure that we do. I don't know, but maybe look for different things to show recognition.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you've had a business coach. Maybe
Mm,
just I understand the value, but
yeah.
just for the listeners, just maybe
Yeah.
talk them through what that's been like for you.
Well, I suppose it was really important, bottom line, to have someone encourage me or challenge me to stop being so focused on the day-to-day delivery of the work and actually step out of it and have a look at what's been going on. Like where are you? Take an objective view and where are you going? And I think it's really easy to get stuck in the day-to-day being on the tools kind of, and you always get dragged back into that because, you're sitting in an office and people, especially if you've got a team, are going to ask you what's going on, or, they're going to have questions, or a client wants to know something, and you're going to get pulled back into that. And I think it's really important to have somebody that is going to hold you accountable. But actually, also, it's a really lonely place to be a business owner, especially if you've got a team. And so to have somebody in your corner that is, you can say, oh, I've won this amazing bit of work, or, oh, I'm really struggling with this, or you'll never believe what's happened with X, Y, and Z. Actually, to have somebody independent and objective, but also on your side, but not part of your team. So that if it's something bad, or something about, another team member or something like that, you can actually have that conversation and still talk about it, without impacting in any way on your business. So I think even just from that point of view, it was valuable for me. I think the action coach process is really good in that it's so structured. And so that was what encouraged me to go and have a look and think, well, where do I want to be in 5 years' time? And then how am I going to break that process down? Like, how does that break down into small steps? And, and this is a great time because, we're in January just now. So,
Mm.
you're thinking about New Year's resolutions. If you said, I want to lose 4 stone, you're never going to lose 4 stone unless you break that down into small actions. Like, well, what are you going to do? Like, okay, what does that look like over the course of a year? Let's set a reasonable goal for that. And how do you break that down into small steps? And so it might be that you've got different strands to look at, like your eating or your activity or whatever it is. And so you break that down into small steps so that you've got a list of actions that I'm going to do this week. And it's the same thing, I think, that really helps, because I did work with an action coach, at the outset, and that was incredibly valuable. And that helped me write that 5-year plan and also give me the accountability to stick to it, to make sure I was on track.
Well, us action coaches, we're very collaborative and cooperative. So it feels right that you should just give your action coach a shout out.
Oh, that's
Who were
lovely.
you working with?
So I work with Graham Clark,
Oh, yes. Yes.
based in Edinburgh. Yeah. So, and I'm still in touch with Graham too. So he's actually coming for lunch tomorrow at the practice, but I actually work with a different coach just now. But it's still a really valuable relationship. And, I've got nothing but good things to say about Graham. That was a point where, the business was, for every business owner, COVID was extraordinary, wasn't it? So, it did change things. It changed things for everybody. But that was a really great opportunity for me to step back and look and see what was happening and think, okay, I've got to change in some way. What am I doing?
So what about the next 5-year plan then?
Well,
What
um,
future hold for
yeah.
Accountability Edinburgh?
So I think more of the same, to be honest, Brenda, but just more of it in some way.
Mhm.
So I think probably we might start to take on additional kind of service lines. And we're also considering potentially it could be that we open additional branches so that we're not just Accountability Edinburgh.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, I think for me, I'm in my 50s now. My children are leaving at home. I suppose at some point I'd like to get a little bit more off the tools. And so for me, I'm really looking now at succession planning and, and kind of getting the team involved more actively in management. We took a big step towards that last year in terms of restructuring our management, which has been great. Actually, that's been a really, really positive move. But I think, yeah, we'll see an extension of that. The other area that we're keen to get involved in is carbon reporting.
Uh-huh.
So that's a whole other sector that we haven't, you know, we are planning in the next year to start delivering. So we've got a small cohort of our clients who are keen to be used as test cases so that we can deliver carbon reporting. So that's another kind of service line that we potentially offer, which I don't think a huge number of people are providing, but actually we've got access to the data largely that's required. When we're doing the bookkeeping for somebody,
Mm.
we've got access to the data that's required in order to assess, because you have to assess carbon emissions on a transaction by transaction basis. And so, we've got that data. There's software that exists. It's just we've not yet offered that as a service line. So, but that's a direction of travel for the practice because it would fit with our sustainability goals.
That was my very next question was, is
Mm.
sustainability something that, is that a value for
Yes.
you and your business? Yeah.
Yeah. Not explicitly a value, our value being good humans beyond ordinary and courageous common sense. But in that, definitely we have panels. So, so we've identified, so we're loosely following B Corp. So we are a B Corp applicant, and we've been working on that for about a year or more, actually. But we followed that model in terms of B Corp exists. B Corps are there for the benefit of not just profit, but they value people and planet. And we have identified as a practice that the environment is incredibly important to us. We want to encourage sustainable practices within the practice. And we've got a panel of staff, one that is dedicated to the environment. And so their role as a group of staff members is to encourage our sustainable practices, but also thinking about what we can do to support that with our clients.
Mhm.
And so it'll be those members of staff who get involved in carbon reporting when we roll it out. We also have a community panel. So they think about our charity partnership. And then we've got a staff panel, and they think about how we're working with our staff and staff benefits and what we can do to engage our staff. And so, yeah, sustainability is really important to us. We've put it kind of right in the center of the kind of work that we're doing as a practice. Yeah. I mean, I think accountants are really uniquely positioned to be able to support their clients with with carbon reporting and with transitioning to net zero. I mean, this is quite increasingly understood in the accounting sector, although there's not a huge number of accountants who are jumping on the bandwagon, but it is happening. You see this more and more actually in accounting industry events, that people are looking to, see what they can do to support their clients, going for, kind of carbon awareness training, that kind of thing. So
Brilliant. I think
yeah,
that's brilliant. That's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think if there's an opportunity here for us to do, to, to, I mean, as a parent of teens now, I guess, or children who are leaving home, I suppose I've got, for me, I feel like I've got a moral responsibility to be able to look back on what I've done as an adult and, and, and say I've done my best. Oh, that's got me.
Oh,
But, but I think that there is that. You want to be able to make sure that you've done your absolute best. And this is definitely an issue that in my own way, I can do something to improve.
and actually having a business gives you more opportunity to do that than just
Absolutely.
as an individual, doesn't it? Yeah, it gives your
Absolutely.
business as
Because I
a
can,
vessel for good.
exactly, I can advocate in a in a wider sense as a business than I can as an individual. So I think, yeah, and I know that I've got, there are people within the practice who feel within the business who feel the same way, which is great. And so, brilliant. Let's see what we can do.
So I want to talk about Rosie then.
Mhm.
What have you learned about yourself over your journey as a business owner?
Well, what have I learned about myself? I'm very stubborn. If somebody tells me, I don't know that I've learned this before because I've known this forever, but if somebody tells me I can't do something, that's when I'm going to do it. I'm just, yeah, I'm very stubborn. I'm really ambitious in terms of, I do believe that if I set my mind to do something, I'm going, you know, I can get there by hook or by crook. There's, there's a way. I think, what else have I learned about myself? That's a really good question. I'm not very good at doing the same repetitive work, which is bizarre, isn't it, for a bookkeeper? Because you'd think that a
Yeah.
bookkeeper would be brilliant at that. And actually, I think that's why it was quite good for me to have moved from client to client, because actually then there was a difference. I really like working on a project, and I'm very good at being very focused on a piece of work, delivering a piece of work, looking back and thinking, well, that was good. And then thinking, right, what am I moving on to next? So I think I like to be involved in projects. I'm not put off by anything big. You know, I what else have I learned? I don't know. I don't know what I've learned. I think those two things. I think, yeah, resilience, stubbornness, that I don't panic. I'm calm in a crisis. I think,
Great.
uh,
Those are
yeah,
great
I
traits
think that's
for
probably it. I can't think of anything else. I'm not very
great,
good at being very,
great, great
I've now
traits
learned
for a
I'm not
business.
very good at being self-reflective.
It'll come to you later on. You'll be at home tonight and you go, that's what I should have said.
Oh, I know I'll come out with a list.
But actually, those that you've mentioned, they're great traits as a business owner and great traits as the financial partner of business owners.
I'd
You know,
like to
that
think so. Yeah.
stubbornness and calm under pressure, and that's what when it's all the numbers and there's something going wrong in there, and they've got you calm, steady. It's okay.
Oh, I mean, and let's find a solution. I mean, I'm very solutions oriented. I've always been like that. There's got to be a way. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what advice would you have then? We've not really talked about the challenges of being a woman in business, but the purpose of this podcast is to inspire more women to do what we've done, because only 1 in 3 entrepreneurs in the UK are female, and men are much more likely to scale their business, and all of the stats are all there. What advice would you have for other women looking to follow in your footsteps?
I think it's that fear factor, isn't it? The fear of failure. You've got to look right in the face and do it anyway. I mean, I can't remember that's a very familiar quote. I'm trying to think
Oh,
if I've
it's
got that.
feel
Is
free
it?
to do it anyway. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm just looking on my pin board here. I've got a postcard here that says, I can, I will, end of story. I think
I
that's my
like it.
motto. I can, I will, end of story. Yeah. It's funny actually, just looking at my pin board, because the things that I've got up here that I look at I've got a picture of the winged victory of Samothrace, which is a big statue in Paris, but it's this woman, it's clearly female form, and she just looks so powerful. And I love that statue. And I've got a picture of her. I think it's that. I think it's to believe in your own power, that on a small way, you, you can. We've got a lot of challenges, right, as women especially for those of us who fall into some kind of caring responsibility. I mean, I had that. I had a son, I had 3 children, an older child and then twins. And at the same time, then my mum was going in and out of hospital needing care. And so it was an incredibly challenging time to start a business. And I was able to do that. And I was lucky in that I had the support of my husband, who, was also encouraging and helpful. And I know that lots of women may not have that, but it comes down to a self-belief, doesn't it? I think it comes down to you've got to, if you think that you can achieve a thing and you think there's a value in that thing, I mean, I think it's looking back and thinking, would I regret it if I hadn't? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think sometimes you have to step into the void, right? You have to step into the unknown. And also I've supported many, many female founders who've decided what can be equally challenging is to give up, like is to know when to stop. And so, sometimes I find that there are businesses where they've got into debt, they're servicing that debt, they, you know, they don't, they're barely taking a salary. They're not, they've struggled to find a way to make it pay. And sometimes it takes equal strength to say, do you know what? I'm just going to stop, and then I'm going to start again, and I'm going to do something else the next time. I think it all is well. Do you know? I mean, the thing is that if you've given it your best shot, if you give it your best shot, then it sounds awfully trite, doesn't it? I don't know. I mean, I think it is just believe in your own power, and also try not to take everything quite so seriously. I think you can get burrowed down into like, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And actually, so long as you're remembering why you started in the first place. Yeah, I think, yeah. Sorry, that's not very succinct. I
No,
feel like I
that's
should have prepared an
honestly,
answer to
no,
you
no, you
than that.
said it from the heart. I could tell it was from the heart.
Yeah.
Believe in your own power.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely been times since I started the business, which is coming now 14 years ago. This is our 14th year, where I thought, I can't carry on. This is too much. It's too hard. And actually, there was a point actually where I even went so far as to talk to some of my clients and say, I'm going to stop, but I'm just going to scale it back, and I'm just going to work on I chose 2 or 3 clients and said, I'm just going to work on your business. And as I was having that thought, I could hear my husband saying, well, you've done it once, you could always do it again. And I thought, I can't go through that again. I can't go through the pain, of actually setting that up again. And so I pushed on, and actually I'm really glad I did. And I think he probably knew that when he said, oh, you could just start, you've done it once, you could do it again. And I don't think it necessarily has to be painful either. I keep saying I've pushed through the pain. I actually think, had I engaged with somebody an advisor, if I'd found advisors that could help me early on, I would have had much less pain about the whole thing. Who I
Yeah.
think I think having somebody who's by your side, who is there to talk to, is a really valuable thing. I think actually if I was starting again, I might start up with a I don't know, it's probably got, I mean, I was going to say with a partner, but I think having a sounding board, making sure you've got a sounding board is a really valuable thing. I did learn that, but it took me a while.
But you know it now, and you're sharing it with everyone. So that's,
I
yeah.
know, and I'm sorry, I'll stop wittering because I feel
No,
like
no,
I've
you're
taken
good.
a long time to answer
You-
that question.
Yeah, no, that's, I really like your answer. It was worth the time
Okay,
to.
good. Thank you.
We're running out of time, Rosie. Is there
Okay,
anything
sorry.
that I should have asked you that I haven't? Anything you would like to add to the conversation?
No, other than I completely endorse what you say, what a shame it is that about, how few women take up that opportunity to start a business. And I've met some brilliant business owners who always, it happens so much more with women than it does with men, that they apologize that they don't know, or they come and say, I'm really bad at such and such. And the thing is that none of us are really great at everything. Otherwise, we wouldn't need advisors and we would all be multimillionaires. The the best thing that any business owner can do is to acknowledge that they need support and they need a helping hand and reach out for it without shame, and to ask questions without fear of looking silly. Because I see, and you probably do too, I see many, many of my clients, male and female, who say, who who don't acknowledge when they don't know something. And so women, are much more likely, I think, to say, to do themselves down. And so yeah, I think that if you're talking to, particularly to women, female entrepreneurs, I think just be amazingly proud of yourself that you've set up a business in the first place, that you've taken that big step, because actually that's the most challenging thing to do, isn't it? I
Definitely.
mean, and already you've impressed everyone in your, in your network. You've impressed your family, you've impressed your friends because you've taken that step. It's a big, it's a big step to take, and well done. But, look for partners and don't be afraid to ask questions.
That's just the best answer to finish on, Rosie.
Okay, good.
Don't be look for help and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show, Rosie. It's been an
You're
absolute
really welcome.
pleasure.
Thank you. No, it's great. Thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you to you for listening to Scale Her Up. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show and leave a review. It helps more female business owners to find us. Come and join our Scale Her Up Facebook community to get support, accountability, and connection with other women who just get it. And remember, as I said, only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are still 5 times more likely to scale their business beyond £1 million in turnover than women are. When we start and scale our businesses to the same extent as men, we'll add 250 billion to the UK economy and create millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it, and your business can make a massive difference.